And what is going on, everyone? And welcome to another special edition of Houston Texans football and Bleacher Report. I am one part of your show, Ruben Calavio. You can find me on YouTube. Just type in 713 Houston Sports. The man below me, Harley Dugan at TheLead _ Houston. How is it going, big dog?
I'm doing just fine, man. The NFL Combine is officially wrapped up,
Mm.
and now we starting to gauge our focus with not just draft prospects, but the NFL free agency as well, because that's going to be getting underway relatively soon. There's a lot to get into, actually, even without the immense amount of news coming out.
No, 100%. And before we get into it, man, we want to thank Bleach Report allowing us to be on here, talk Houston Texans football. Always a big shout out to the man upstairs. We saw John Cena turn heel this weekend. What an insane moment that was. I am always going to remember where I was there in that moment. But the Houston Texans, you know what, man? I will say this. There's not a lot of excitement when you look at Texans Twitter, Texans, Instagram and Facebook. Much like there was a lot of buzz last year around this time when you were just a week away from free agency. You still had your first round pick at the time. Now it's like, okay, the expectations are now here, and it's like we're not going into this season thinking, oh, we're going to be the surprise team. It's going to be no, we are going into this season as a Houston Texans team who no one is going to, believe in. And
Mhm.
we're going to have to prove it ourselves. So, other than that, man, not a lot of excitement on our fan base here at the moment.
Yeah, it's all right. I think it's a little stale right now.
Mm,
I think it's more so because we're so ready to just play in the regular season. I
mm.
think this is what happens when you have a team like of the caliber of the Texans. We're excited to see what can they do in 2026. We're excited to already put it on the field. Like that's what the excitement level is at. Yes, free agency and draft, it's a little stale for the for everything, but it is what it is right now. It'll get kicked back up with free agency coming around soon. And then, of course, the NFL draft, the conversations leading up to it. And, Nick Casario and the Texans, they always do something. You can't just, go and grab yourself a drink and
Hmm.
some Subway sandwiches or whatever. Like, you got to be ready on draft week
Yeah,
because
Nick
the Texans always
Casario.
move, man. Texans
Dude, he's
always
been
moving.
aggressive, I think, every single draft that he has been in.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the CJ Stroud draft class, everyone was traded up for except for CJ Stroud, who was there at number two. They traded up for Will Anderson. They traded up for Tank Dell. They traded up for
Yep.
Jared Patterson as well. And, we keep on going with that. But NFL Combine, as you mentioned, just coming to an end. But we got some news regarding a trade. The Houston Texans over the week were mentioned as being very interested in star wide receiver from the San Francisco 49ers, Deebo Samuel. He is now a Washington Commander. A fifth round pick is what got it done. Washington will take on all of Deebo Samuel's contract, but there is just 1 year left on that deal. So this is a 1 year rental. I did see a lot of Texans fans not want us to go and trade for Deebo Samuel. I think we're all good on the Deebo Samuel coming to Houston train.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really wasn't entirely high. Now a fifth round pick. If the Texans gave up a fifth round pick for him,
We wouldn't
I
have it
wouldn't have
mad.
been mad.
Yeah.
That's a very low trade value for Debo Samuel. But again, I felt like he was a lot lower on the list for the amount of wide receivers that are available via trade, via free agency, cut, and
Mm-hmm.
even the draft. Like he is low on that list. And I just don't see the need for a guy that is in a declining statistical player in the NFL. He's had plenty of run at the running back position. Well, that could also attribute to why he is a declining player right now. He also wants a contract extension. I
Mm-mm.
don't know what his value, what he thinks his value is, but when I look at his numbers and they're going downward, I'm not trying to pay top dollar for wide receiver 2 on this team, and you can find better options elsewhere.
Yeah, which is why we talked about guys like a Tutu Atwell, like a
Mm,
Darius Slade, and those, both of those guys would be cheaper than Debo Samuel. I am interested to see how it plays out, because if there is some Debo Samuel success and he looks fantastic with second year quarterback Jaden Daniels, you're going to see a lot of Houston Texans fans saying we should have gave up our fifth round pick to get Debo Samuel. But I will say this: when we were talking about guys like Debo, like Devontae Adams, Cooper Cup, even, it's like these are rentals.
mm,
These are not long-term fits. And if
no.
I want a rental, I want a rental that is effective. Debo
Yeah.
Samuel, we can all agree, was not the Debo Samuel, has not been the Debo Samuel since 2021. With Cooper Cup, we know he's not the wide receiver that got 2,000 yards a couple of years ago. With, someone like a Devontae Adams, it's, oh, well, the talent's there, but as you mentioned multiple times, he wants to play in California, the West Coast.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I would rather take an opportunity to go with a lesser known name and see what type of production I could potentially get. And when you look at the Houston Texans cap situation right now, only $8 million, Harley. Now, of
Mm,
course, with some restructures from Laramie Tunsil, Nico Collins, Daniil Hunter, Titus Howard, that could potentially net the Houston Texans an extra $35 to $40 million. But we know where a majority of that is going to Derek Stingley Jr.
yeah.
So the Texans, man, they got a bargain bin this offseason.
Yeah, that's been the pretty much my mindset. Well, on my YouTube channel is I feel like the Texans have to be thrifty this year. They have to be frugal and they got to be penny pinchers. And John Hickman had a tweet earlier today talking about Nick Casario viewing the Texans cap situation and being more conscious of the cap situation. That might upset a lot of fans because obviously when it comes to the fans, you want the big name guys, you want the big fish people. You even want people that have the big names and maybe a cheaper price tag, but ultimately there's going to be work to be done for this Texans team. And yeah, I agree with you. They have to look at a cheaper options at wide receiver because I think you can double dip in this market and still draft a top guy. So at 25, there's plenty of options to do here. Whether you attack free agency differently than you do the draft or vice versa, Nick Casario and the Texans got a lot on their plate to figure out this coming week for free agency.
How many signings you think they're going to be? Because if you remember last year, there was no movement for the first 6, 7 hours. I believe the
Mm,
first move the Texans made was bringing in Lonnie Johnson.
yeah,
Yeah, and that was a whole funny moment on Texans Twitter right there. But if we are bargain hunting, maybe we don't see any static till late day 2, day 3 of free agency, kind of, taking what's left on the board and seeing where you could, maximize all of of your hard-earned dollars. And we're gonna have to play some money ball here. Now, I will say this, next year's salary cap is slating up to be, pretty interesting.
true, true. Um, yeah, no, it's basically the same thing. The Texans got to know what they got to do to spend their money accordingly. You mentioned Derek Stingley as somebody that they definitely want to pay, obviously, and we've heard that they want to pay him this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
So then that came from Aaron Wilson. So we got to worry about him. We got to worry about Jalen Petrie. How much money is he going to get?
Is he a free
How
agent
does no, but
next season?
he,
Okay.
yeah, what I'm saying is they're going to have to be looking at extending him, the same years he came out the same year Stingley did. So, but That's something they have to look at, whether he's a safety, whether he's a corner, nickel corner, like where does he fit in the market there? So, and then, you talked about Larry Tunsil getting restructured. They could also, we've learned that they could extend Daniel Hunter and save some money that
Mhm.
way. Daniel Hunter is 31 years old, came off a really good season
A
for us.
lot of
I
football
don't
left.
see any decline in
Mhm.
his future, I would think. And I would not be opposed to giving him an extension. And then you can work with Titus Howard. Like, there's ways to work around the cap space to get some solid wide receivers on this team. But next year, man, they got to do something for this upcoming year. This is a very special year for the Texans because we're getting to the end of CJ Stroud's
Yep.
rookie contract, man, and now you're starting to, okay, we got to figure it out. We got to get into, at the very least, you got to get an AFC Championship appearance
Mm.
during his rookie contract, because to me, now you're going, okay, we really are in the right step, in the right direction as a franchise.
Yeah, you could say that conversations about paying CJ Stroud will start as early as, this upcoming off season after this season. So,
Mhm.
you know how I always feel, man. Bring in as much talent as you can until you have to make CJ Stroud one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And the way he's going currently, two back-to-back 10-win seasons, two playoff appearances, two playoff wins. He's on track to get the bag from the Houston Texans. This is year 3, so I kind of feel like maybe they take care of their guys. Maybe they, play the safe route here. But next season, Harley, I think that is their final off season to go all in until you are financially tied to CJ Sharp for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, basically. I mean, they gotta go in, man, and they gotta make sure they make such shake,
Mm-hmm.
And while you were talking, I was doing a little bit of an exercise right now with the NFL Combine, and so I've been taking screenshots of all the guys that the Texans have met with,
Okay.
and I tallied up by position how many they visited with the Texans,
Can I
just
take a guess?
just by position.
Okay.
And you want to guess who has the most visits?
Running back
Uh, Tied
with
for
wide receiver.
first. Yes. Running back and wide receiver.
Okay.
So the Houston Texans, when you're looking at the offense and defensive side of things, running back, wide receiver, and offensive guard are the three most
Mm.
visited positions for the Houston Texans at this NFL Combine. And I think that's enlightening to see, considering we just got a brand new OC in Nick Caley. And D'Amico, and I mean, not just D'Amico, the fans, all of us in general,
Mhm.
are extremely confident that we can get the same results from this defense again. Yeah,
Yes.
we gotta get some depth guys and everything. That's gonna get situated. Overall, the teeth of this defense is all intact for next
Hmm.
year. It's about fixing the offense. And the Houston Texans, they've had 8 visits from the running back position, 8 visits from the wide receiver position, 7 visits from the offensive guard position.
Mm.
So very interesting. And you can say 1 visit from the center position as well. So you could say three of are tied for first. Offensive lineman, 8 visits. Wide receiver, 8 visits. Running back, 8 visits. The Houston Texans, Nick Caley is going to try to mold this offense and what he wants to do. They know they have to fix the O line. They know they have to get a wide receiver. And Nick Caley talked about running the football.
Hmm.
And yes, you have Joe Mixon. He spoke highly of him. We all know Joe Mixon is that dude. We know it,
Love him.
but we also know we need a backup running back. I'm not looking for, and I saw Texans Cat tweeted this to Cody Stutes, and we all have to agree with this. We don't need to have like thunder and lightning. I want
Mm.
lightning and lightning. Like
Mm.
I want the best running back we can get. Like, give me, if that's Travion Henderson, go give me him. If that's
Mm.
Marion Hampton, go give me him. If it's Cam Scatterbo, you got to get into this running back group.
Yeah, let me read you some stuff about Travion Henderson because he is someone that, stood out to me. He stands out as a true duo threat back, blending impressive speed with pass catching skills that hint had third down NFL potential. When healthy, he is electric. Now, he's had a knee injury, he's had a foot injury that has, took some time away from him. But when healthy, Harley, I mean, he is a dynamic running back. When we talk about Joe Mixon, I feel like Travion Henderson kind of fits into the role as someone who could be a power back, but give you something out of the backfield. Someone like, Omari and Hampton, dude,
Mhm.
is one of the top, is one of this class's top ball carriers and would be considered RB1 in almost any other year. He is a well-rounded player who offers the production, high-end physical tools, and versatility to excel as a three-down running back. I can't remember, Harley, when was the last time the Houston Texans invested one of their, top picks into a running back. I think maybe the last one was Deontay Foreman from Texas, a third
Wow.
round, selection on him. Other than that, I don't think the Houston Texans have spent high draft capital on one, but potentially seeing, a running back in the second, a running back in the third. What about someone like a Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, 6'1",
Yes.
225 pounds? That's literally a carbon copy of Joe Mixon. I think the Texans are going in the right direction. And you brought up, the stats. We are talking, to a lot of offensive guys. When you look at the wide receivers, we've been falling in love with the Mecca Ibuka. Hey, we've been talking about him for years. But when you look at the other wide receivers who are available, what the other wide receivers have done at the combine, Matthew Golden has made himself an extra few $1 million with with his speed displayed on the 40-yard dash. You spoke highly about him being, from U of H and transferring to Texas. I would love that move as well. But dude, offensive firepower is what you need.
Yeah, I mean, hey, John Hickman had that tweet, and I mentioned him twice. He's
Shout
a
out to John
pod.
Hickman.
John Hickman, shout out to Locked On Texans. He does great, great work over there, and he is credentialed for the Houston Texans, a part of the media. And he had that tweet talking about that Nick Casario and viewing Matthew Golden as a guy that with legitimate speed could help this Nick Cayley's offense. Like, excuse me, but Matthew Golden ran the fastest 40 for the wide receivers in the NFL Combine. His stock is high right now. I am a big fan of Matthew Golden, definitely a little biased when I start talking about him during his time with the Houston Cougars. But him and Tank Dell were phenomenal in their short time together. And again, all it was that they needed a quarterback. Clayton Tune was not going to be that guy. And then they had Donovan Smith the following year, and it wasn't that guy either.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why he ended up transferring to Texas. And you didn't really get to see him ultimately shine at Texas because Quinn Ewers, albeit was a solid college quarterback, but I wouldn't say he's anything that you're chomping for in the draft. The Texas Longhorns offense was still, I believe, 21st in college, and Matthew Golden's stats don't look like, something crazy with UT, but in them playoff games, in
Mm-hmm.
big games, Matthew Golden was there continuously. I would love to have him with Nico Collins. I just want to see what Nick Cayley could work creatively with Matthew Golden. And he already has a connection here with Tank Dell. He played here in Houston. Like Nick Casario has been known to drafting guys inside the state of Texas as well. We've seen this many times,
Mm-hmm.
and especially hometown guys specifically.
Jaden Petrie.
He's drafted a bunch. Hell, even Kenyon Green, regardless of how he turned out. There's plenty of guys. Tank Dell came from Houston. Like there's plenty of guys that he's attacked here. Austin Deculus as well. No matter how he turned out, another example of
Mm-hmm.
someone that got drafted here from the hometown state.
But he was like a seventh round pick, so he has that slack.
but that's just another example. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Like that's all that really neat is.
Yeah.
It's just another example. Um, Travion Henderson, he fits the bill for the Texans. Caleb Johnson fits the bill for the Texans. Travion Henderson was a captain at Ohio State. That's what the Texans like to draft.
Great point.
He went to a Power Five school, Ohio State, the Ohio
Ohio
State
State.
University. Excuse me. All right, excuse me for my disrespectfulness. That's check mark two because the Texans only draft Power Five guys. They've drafted a lot of captains as well. Those are two things right there. And then the third thing, he is a man of God,
Mhm.
and the Texans very much value high quality character guys. And so that is another thing. I know it's funny, but it is a
No,
common.
no, you're right, which is why I'm
Yeah,
laughing.
it's hilarious. But Caleb Johnson was also the captain at Iowa. Iowa is a Big Ten school. Yes, that's a Power Five. Now, do I know much about his character? Not so much, but I could definitely see the Texans having interest in just at least two of those guys in
Mhm.
that barrage of running backs that is going to be coming out in this draft.
It's also about surrounding CJ Stroud with as much talent as you can, if he truly is the franchise guy. And he's shown us that as early, as day one when me and you were at the Miller Lite Outdoor Theater and we saw CJ Stroud and Will Anderson together on the Jumbotron talking directly to us. What a moment that was. Um, you know, I also love hearing offensive guard. And to be honest, Harley, if they go with a Tyler Booker in the first round, if they go with a Gray Zabel in the
Mhm.
second round, that will get me just as excited as a Emeka Wabuka, Matthew Golden, either the running backs we were talking about because of what their job is as soon as they get here, and that is protecting CJ Stroud. At one point, Hardy, last year, we were talking about just how horrible this offensive line is, how it is affecting CJ Stroud. He is seeing ghosts out there. It got so bad, and his play got so bad we threw around the term sophomore slump. We saw
Yes.
CJ Stroud. We saw that he himself can overcome a horrible offensive line, but you don't want him doing that every single time he takes a step back to throw the football. A Tyler Booker, a Gray Zabel, your first two selections. I mean, it doesn't have to go O line, but if the O line is one of your first two, I am applauding Houston because you're taking care of your number one asset, and that is CJ Stroud.
You take a I know they're a part of the Tennessee Titans history, but they were still Houston sports history as well at one point. And the Houston Oilers decided we were going to go into one draft and just draft nothing but offensive linemen.
Mm.
And they went into it and reconstructed their entire offensive line through the draft. You have a Hall of Famer in Bruce Matthews. You had Mike Munchak, Dean Steinkooler. Like these guys were legitimate offensive linemen that improved the entire offense. I would love to see the Houston Texans take a similar mindset. We can go as far as that. We can go as far as the in-state rivals of the Dallas Cowboys. They went and drafted Zach Martin. They got Travis Frederick. Everyone criticized
Mm.
the 16th overall pick and Travis Frederick. They're like, why are they drafting this guy? Travis Frederick, if he did not retire, was on his path to being a Hall of Famer as well. Zach Martin is a Hall of Famer. This is what you got to do in order to help this team long term is fix the offensive line, improve it as much as possible. You mentioned Tyler Booker, Power
Mm.
5 school. He was a captain at Alabama.
His
He
quote was
was
fantastic.
his intangibles are compared to that of Will Anderson. And we know Nick Casario likes to draft Alabama guys going all the way back to his times with the New England Patriots. And D'Amico Ryans is a former Alabama Roll Tide guy as well
Mhm.
too. Like they have shown that they are interested in Alabama guys as much as every other NFL team. Gray Zabel is the only one for me. Yes, he was a captain of North Dakota State, but it is North Dakota State University. It is not a Power Five school.
Fair.
And until the Houston Texans draft somebody that is from a non-Power Five, then I won't change my mind about it. And I
Well, that's
love Gray's Able. I do. He met with the Texans at the NFL Combine. I I would love it. He met with them at the Senior Bowl as well too.
had
So
a hell of a Senior Bowl.
he made some people go, "Wow, this guy's a this guy went from an FCS school."
Now to his credit, North Dakota State, there are some, NFL players who went to North
True.
Dakota State, right? Trey Lance,
Carson
Chris,
Wentz.
Carson Wentz, Christian Watson,
Yeah,
wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. He went selected in the first round, I
we'll see.
believe. So,
Yeah.
so there are some good players, but you bring up a great point. Until we draft someone from a North Dakota State, from a Rutgers, from a Minnesota, we're not going to talk about them until general manager Nick Casario actually
Mm.
goes out there and makes that decision. But dude, I am happy going offensive heavy. Even in the third round, when we talk about some of these tight ends, Elijah Arroyo, tight end from Miami,
Mm.
looks great. Gunnar Helm, we saw how his ankle looked at the combine just for 24 hours and still put on a good display. There is a lot of talent for the offense, and you like seeing that with new OC Nick Caley, based off of who they had meetings with, that they are addressing it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna see what the Texans do. Again, they're definitely having an offensive mindset when it
Mhm.
comes to the NFL Combine here. It still wouldn't shock me if they still grabbed a defensive tackle at 25.
It's gonna be hard not to pass up those guys.
Definitely, but I think the numbers are overwhelming
Mhm.
when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. They know that to me, if you just went statistically by these numbers at the NFL Combine, you think the Texans' three biggest needs are running back, wide receiver, and offensive lineman. We mentioned it was DT, wide receiver, and O line. That's two out of the three for me.
Mhm.
It's not like running back. I'm gonna be upset if we drafted a running back. I would not. I would love it. This Texans team sooner or later has to put some talent at the running back position.
No, I 100% agree with that take. You need to just have a high powered offense. You have the defense. The offense failed you in 2024. It cannot fail you in 2025 because then you got problems. Real quick, Harley, I don't know if we have talked about it yet, but Texans trying to get a new stadium, even
Yeah.
threatening
Wow. I forgot about that.
relocation. Now, not saying the Texans will leave Houston, terms of they will no longer be called the Houston Texans, but maybe the stadium's in somewhere like a Katy, like
No.
a no, you wouldn't think so?
No. Why? Why? Katie is not in Houston.
It's like, hey, Arlington's not in Dallas.
I would be livid if they moved that to Katie. I would oh man.
Really?
Oh, I would be livid.
Dude,
That
the
is not
stadium
Houston.
NRG
People
right
make fun of
now.
the Rangers because Arlington is in there. Like the not gonna get into it.
So what? You want them to just stay at NRG?
They don't have to like why okay they're on Kirby and if anybody that is not a Houstonian watching, Kirby is not the greatest part of Houston, I will say.
Not a place for a stadium to be at
For sure, okay,
because you are in the
but
medical center.
yeah, but um, East downtown Houston, man, where you have the Astros around there, you got the Dynamo around there, you got the Rockets around there.
All within 10
It
minutes
is
of each other.
like, come on, it just have the stadium around that. That is where the Houston sports vibe is at in
Right by
this
Little
city.
Woodrow's, baby.
Come on, man. Let's have it right there. All right, there's no problem. But you move it to Kirby. You move it to Katy. I'm gonna lose it. I
Eh,
am gonna lose it.
it's just, I know
I will
getting to
lose
the
it.
stadium is a challenge. Leaving the stadium is a challenge. The freeway that is directly next to the stadium has been under construction what feels like
Forever.
the
That
past
was
30 years. It's even NRG itself. it doesn't tell you this is where the Houston Texans play. Because when you go to the Toyota Center, right, every bit of the inside is rocket red. You go
Yeah.
to Minute Maid Park, now called Daikin Park. Hold on, are you going to call it Minute Maid? I'm sorry, Daikin, or is it always Minute Maid for you?
It's always Minute Maid.
Astros orange, forever orange. It's all over the walls.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that at NRG. It's as plain as they come. It's not, and that's it. It is a plain stadium. There is nothing special about it, which is why I wouldn't mind a new one. But I
I
will
wouldn't mind the
say,
new one either.
you just want it in Houston. You don't want it going,
I don't
any.
want it outside of Houston. Katie is not in Houston.
What are they
People could
doing on the
disagree with me on
opposite
that.
side where Astro Road used to be?
Okay.
You still gonna have the same
Okay.
problem with the freeways though.
True, but it better not be in Katy. Katy is not in Houston. People could disagree all they want, but I'm sorry, you're in Katy. You're in Katy. You're not in Houston. That's totally different. I drive to Katy,
Are we in
and I'm
Pasadena or
going.
are we in Houston?
That's tough. You're like
Oh,
on the border. You're on the border there, though.
yeah.
When I drive to Katy, I don't feel like that's Houston. When I drive to Pearland, I don't feel like that's Houston. Drive to Manville or Alvin. That is not Houston. Manville is the equivalent of Katy. Like, that is not Houston.
Fair. Can't wait to talk about it some more. Guys, thank you everyone who was a part of today's live stream. We'll be back on Wednesday. Hardy, let's have a free agent one list. Let's bring in some guys who we think could be fantastic additions, regardless of money. Well, I mean, besides, like obviously the big ticket free agents, but other than that, that was Harley. I am Ruben. We will see you Wednesday. Do us a favor. Have a real blessed rest of your day.